Okay, ever since we pulled the curtain back a little bit and we showed a list of all of our video ideas, one of the most requested upcoming videos by far was our Fusion Coil tier list video, because seriously, this stuff is deep. It's not just some surface level, this is good, this is bad. There's some science going on here. There's been hours of debate and speculation. We put together a panel of Halo Fusion Coil enthusiasts to submit their opinions. It was just Dim, Luke, and I, but still, we were really surprised to see, first of all, how many different variations of fusion coils there are, and then secondly, the differences are actually much more massive than we had initially anticipated. But there we went, Halo to Halo, investigating and looking at every single different type of fusion coil, not plasma batteries, that's a whole different video for some other day, and we believe we accurately ranked each and every different variation of the coil. And before you comment, does this mean you guys are actually out of video ideas? No, we have so many different video ideas that we could have released that we still have yet to release one day, maybe. I mean, things like, can you beat Halo without a controller? Ranking the best and worst feat in Halo. Heck, we could even do a video on a fully annotated history of Cortana 117. You know, Master Chief's and Cortana's son who listens to a lot of Fall Out Boy. But nonetheless, here we are, and we're jumping straight in. Now, Halo 2 was the first Halo game to introduce the Fusion Coil, and it only appeared in the multiplayer side of things. And right away, there's a lot you can appreciate about Halo 2's Fusion Coil, besides the fact that it introduced the Fusion Coil for players across the world to finally get to experience it. While it does have a lower resolution design because, you know, 2004, it was actually really neat that it was interactive, and you could push it around and stuff, and it would roll, and then it would explode, and it'd be terrifying. There's something really cool about just the glow that emits from this Fusion Coil, and we think it's a good starting point for what legacy this item had for the rest of Halo. So we're gonna go ahead and put this one up in A tier just to start things off and give us a good gauge for the rest of Halo. Now, when it comes to Halo 2, there was another variation of the Fusion Coil as well. There was a Forerunner variation introduced, and it was quite a bit different in the way that it was designed and just its general detail that it had. This one had these really cool LED lights on it, and it had this really unique square Roblox aesthetic to it that we just really could get behind and support. And I think because of that, it deserves its spot up in A tier. Now, there was a little bit of a debate when it came to Halo 3's Forerunner Fusion Coil, just because we had just finished talking about the Halo 2 Forerunner Fusion Coil, because it does have a new redesign to it. It's sleeker, it's cleaner, and while we kind of felt like it was more deserving at times, the one thing that pushed it down and didn't let it fully surpass the potential of the Halo 2 Forerunner Fusion Coil is the lack of those LED lights right there in the middle. If it just had that one thing, it would have been really great. However, Halo 3's redesign on the Fusion Coil for Forerunners was still really good, and we can't deny the fact that it's still at least on par of that of Halo 2's Forerunner. So we're gonna keep it right there at B tier, not quite as good as the human version of Halo 2's Forerunner Fusion Coil, but still really one we can get behind and still say it's pretty good. Okay, now Halo 3's Fusion Coil is one a lot of people definitely can associate and identify with, because the human fusion coil was very heavily used in Forge and custom games, and it also appeared in a campaign for the first time. And honestly, this is kind of the ultimate and most iconic design that we feel should be the best representation of that of the fusion coil. Besides the fact that the design just looks very clean, it's easy to understand what you're looking at, there's something really cool about a mixture of how the light emits from it, and also this eerie sound effect that kind of rumbles or reverberates as you stand near it, and the way the pitches change as the object is moved around. You constantly feel on edge or uneasy just being in the presence of the fusion coil. That's something we thought was really cool and just a really awesome attention to detail that came with this fusion coil. And besides all of the fun and amazing times and just the random bounciness and chaos that goes with this fusion coil, we think that this one is deserving of really topping off the list and being the upper echelon of what every Halo Fusion Coil should strive to be. So we're putting this one up in S tier. Just a couple of years after Halo 3 released, ODST released, and at first glance, you would just assume it would be in S tier because, you know, it's the Halo 3 engine, it would make sense. But as we looked closer, we did notice there is a slight difference in the coloration because of the color palette used in ODST, so we would have to re-look at it with different criteria. But it turns out that it's still dope, so S tier anyways. We just wanted to be clear that we differentiated it, and it's still great. For the most part, it seemed like when Halo Reach rolled around, they knew that the Fusion Coil was playing an integral part in a lot of custom games and Forge, and of course, keeping that integrity was important, obviously, with Reach. Though they did do a subtle redesign, changing the coloration from this orange color that would emit in a radius to a more subtle green color, which we didn't like as much, but they did add a lot of depth to the design, especially when it comes to the handles. This Fusion Coil still plays well and it's still fun, so we're putting this one at A tier, just slightly below the Halo 3 one. The next Halo game to release would be Combat Evolved Anniversary, which didn't have Fusion Coils in it. So let's look at Halo 4, because this one was really different. Starting things off with the human Fusion Coil, we were so confused with what was going on here. First of all, the color of the Fusion Coil changed again to blue for whatever reason, and to us it seemed like an odd choice just because blue usually means either something in the field of invisibility or something more positive, and it just looks like something more fun than a dangerous explosive. But the real question we had was, why does the Fusion Coil in Halo 4 disintegrate a player when it explodes? Like, this thing straight up just composes Spartans if they're nearby the Fusion Coil. So I'd like to know what type of weaponry the UNSC are actually hiding if they're able to just have this composing technology right there already in Fusion Coils. I still don't fully understand it, and until I do, I'm gonna temporarily, or for now, put it down in D tier. However, while I can be critical of the newer Halo games at times, the Forerunner Fusion Coil was something that we did talk about a little bit, because there was a big shift with the aesthetic for the Forerunner design of the Fusion Coil. Sure, I know we just went into this big debate about how blue is weird for Fusion Coils, and there was a bunch of blue Forerunner Fusion Coils, but when it comes to UNSC things, I felt like the orange or the green made more sense than blue. But then they also shifted the Forerunner version to a different color palette, to the more orange color palette. At first, we weren't a fan of how they shifted the design, but at the very least, we could argue maybe it's explained by the aesthetic of the Forerunner items on Requiem, and maybe that's why it's not as consistent to other places in the Halo universe. I mean, the Didact kind of has this like orange thing going on, so while this is the first Forerunner Fusion Coil to follow that orange aesthetic, we actually didn't mind this design too much. We think that it plays kind of interestingly in reminding us of that original Halo 2 human Fusion Coil, and it's not the worst Fusion Coil we've seen, so we're putting it there in B tier along with some of the other ones. Okay, so then when Halo 2 Anniversary came out, things got a little bit more confusing. Essentially, Halo 2's Anniversary's campaign has one sandbox of items, and then Halo 2 Anniversary Multiplayer, which is built off of the Halo 4 engine, has other sandboxes of items. So we have more Fusion Coils to work with here. In the campaign side of things, in Halo 2 Anniversary, the Forerunner version has the LED lights from Halo 2, which we thought was a good addition, but it did change the shape a little bit more from the original, and it seemed to differentiate itself too much from that Roblox aesthetic, so we are dipping this one down to C tier. And Halo 2 Anniversary Campaign didn't feature any human Fusion Coils, so there's none to actually talk about here. On the multiplayer side of things though, they did have a new redesigned Forerunner Fusion Coil, which is actually really good here. It takes shape from the best of the Fusion Coils of the Forerunners from Halo 3 and Halo 2 and kind of mixes them together into this new design, though the one complaint we had is that the lights on it might be a little bit too much to maybe rank it any higher than where we're going to put this one. It feels almost like this over coloration that's featured in Halo 5 Guardians, but still, it's a good design nonetheless, so we're putting it up here in B tier. Okay, and then in the multiplayer side of things, they decided to continue to use this weird blue Fusion Coil introduced in Halo 4 and use it in Halo 2 Anniversary Multiplayer as well. We still don't like it. However, they did add an EMP variant, which was neat and at least could explain the purpose of the different color on it. So we are going to bump it up just slightly higher than the Halo 4 one, putting it there at C tier. Okay, so we get to Halo 5 Guardians, and this is where it gets really interesting. This is what you guys signed up for when you clicked on this video to watch, because this is honestly just one of the most interesting things we've looked into in quite some time. Starting things off, Halo 5 Guardians has several different Fusion Coils, which is great. More things to look into. Now, before we show a Fusion Coil, if someone ever asked you just to close your eyes and visualize what the Halo 5 Guardians Fusion Coil looks like, could you actually do it? I mean, maybe if you're really familiar with the sandbox, you could, but if you can't just remember it like myself, please comment so I know I'm not alone here. But I feel like our brains are collectively basically trying to forget the monstrosity that was the Halo 5 fusion coil. Look how they massacred my boy. I don't know why it's so dramatically different here and why it looks the way that it looks, but this is kind of crazy how dramatically different it was from all of the previous Halo games that at least had some similarities when it came to human fusion coils along the way. Then along talking about the different types of fusion coils, there's one that is called a power core. And what? Why does it look like this? I don't know. It kind of looks like a trash can, but this one's problematic as well, maybe. Okay, but maybe the Forerunner version will surprise here? No. How do you get from this to this? I don't understand, but if we weren't comparing across the lines, I'd maybe be able to get behind the design because, I mean, it looks futuristic maybe, so we can let it slide because at least it on its own stands out okay, even though it's not even remotely close to the original design. But then it gets weirder because there's actually two versions of this, a bigger and smaller one, and Luke liked the bigger one as it regenerates and thought it could maybe go up a little bit higher, but I was pretty adamant I didn't like the bigger one, and I like the smaller one, so we compromised and decided that they're both going in F tier, along with the rest of the fusion coils that we've talked about so far. Okay, then in Halo 5 Guardians, for the very first time ever, we had a Covenant fusion coil. Not to be confused with the plasma battery, that's a different video, but this game lists it as a fusion coil and it's added to the Fusion Coil cinematic universe. Not too bad. We honestly were kind of unsure how to feel about this the first time we looked at this version of the fusion coil, but the more we looked on it, the more it kind of grew on us. We like the idea that it's finally giving the Covenant some sort of newer identity than the Covenant we've seen in previous Halo games, especially if this is going to be some newer faction. This fusion coil still looks good, and we were quite impressed. So this one's going to stand out and we're going to put it all the way up in A tier while we can just throw out the rest of the Halo 5 ones. Okay, and then we can look to Halo Infinite, which gives us a brief look at the fusion coil in the gameplay trailer, but we don't actually get to see it too much to see what the final version would look like or see how it actually ends up playing. So this is more speculative, subject to change, but we will still look into the trailer and talk about it a little bit. Now, right away, it's very clear that the fusion coil here is a back to basics approach and making the fusion coil easily identifiable, which is something we really appreciate. Now, this is most likely a Forerunner variation of the fusion coil, and even though it resembles that Forerunner design from Halo 4 slightly, we actually think this is a really good approach here. The design is still integral enough to the original fusion coils to know what it is, but different enough to feel like it's something new from a new location. It still resembles the human mode that a lot of people identify with from Halo 3 or Halo Reach, but it still kind of has some fresh markings on it as well. We think that's a really cool way to handle it, so we're putting this one up in A tier. Now, there's also this blue thing that we assume is also a fusion coil as well. We can't wait to see more of it because it could play differently. Maybe it's like an EMP fusion coil, and there's a lot of possibilities, but it could also end up just being not that cool. So while we're hesitant on it, we're going to go ahead and leave it in the B tier for now, subject to change down the road. And it looks like we successfully put our opinions for where each fusion coil from every Halo game sits in an official Rocket Sloth tier list. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Let us know in the comments down below. Which one would you switch out if we have some stuff wrong? If you want more videos like this that are super serious, you can check out the most challenging video we did 1 year ago today, where we tried to play Halo 3 on easy difficulty, or the year before that, where we looked at the best elevators of all time in Halo. Seriously, elevators are the most integral and important part of Halo, and without elevators, I don't know where we'd be. So make sure you guys go check those videos out if you haven't watched them already, or subscribe for new videos just like this.